The question right now inside Washington isn't just about airstrikes or naval power. It's about something far more serious. Could American boots actually step onto Iranian soil? Because once that happens, everything changes. As of today, the United States is already deeply involved in a widening conflict with Iran. Airstrikes, drone warfare, naval operations in the Strait of Hormuz, all of it is happening right now. But despite the escalation, one line has not yet been crossed. There are no confirmed U.S. ground troops inside Iran, and that line is exactly what the Pentagon is debating. Behind closed doors, military planners are facing a brutal reality. Air power can destroy targets. It can weaken Iran's military infrastructure, but it cannot occupy territory, secure cities, or eliminate deeply buried systems on its own. At some point, if objectives expand, ground forces become the only option. Publicly, officials are being very careful. The Pentagon has refused to rule out sending troops, repeating a consistent message: all options remain on the table. At the same time, the White House says ground troops are not currently part of the plan, but again, they won't rule it out either. That combination of statements is not accidental. It reflects uncertainty and preparation. Because the truth is, sending ground troops into Iran would be one of the most dangerous military decisions in modern history. Iran is not Iraq. It's not Afghanistan. It's a country of over 80 million people, with difficult terrain, massive cities, and a military built specifically to resist invasion. Mountains, deserts, and dense urban zones would make any ground campaign slow, costly, and unpredictable. And the Pentagon knows this. That's why current operations are heavily focused on air superiority, long-range strikes, and naval control, minimizing direct exposure while still applying pressure. But even that approach is showing limits. Iran continues to launch missiles, drones, and attacks across the region. U.S. forces have already taken casualties, with hundreds wounded in the broader conflict. So the debate inside the Pentagon is shifting. Not if we want boots on the ground, but what happens if we need them. One scenario being discussed is limited deployment, not a full invasion, but targeted operations. Special forces raids, securing key infrastructure, or protecting strategic locations like oil routes. Another scenario is escalation by necessity. If Iran were to significantly disrupt global oil supply or strike major U.S. assets, pressure could mount rapidly to respond with ground forces. And then there's the political reality. Most Americans expect escalation, but don't support it. Polls show a majority believe troops could be sent, while very few actually want that to happen. That creates a dangerous tension between military options and public opinion, because once troops are deployed, pulling back becomes much harder. There's also the risk of something even bigger: regional war. Iran isn't isolated. Any ground invasion could trigger responses from allied militias across the Middle East, expanding the conflict into multiple countries at once. Supply lines, bases, and allies could all become targets overnight. That's the nightmare scenario the Pentagon is trying to avoid. So where does that leave things right now? At this moment, there are no U.S. ground troops inside Iran, but the door is wide open. Military assets are moving into position. Air operations are intensifying. Political language is deliberately vague, and contingency plans are being prepared for worst-case scenarios. In other words, the U.S. is not planning a ground invasion, but it is preparing for the possibility. And in modern warfare, that distinction can disappear faster than anyone expects, because history shows that wars rarely go according to plan, and the biggest decisions are often made when there are no good options left.